Welcome back to Maximum News. Dead Island 2 is still a thing? Really? Breaking news. This came out literally just a few hours before we started recording the podcast. I haven't gotten Syb's thoughts on this, which we'll get to, and we'll get to my thoughts, but let's just get into the details of this. It looks like Dead Island 2 got announced just a little bit too early. Well, I mean, you know, it was already announced, but it's been in development hell. We know all the basics, but apparently there is a now deleted listing on Amazon for Dead Island 2. It got taken off because it came out too early. It's looking like it was going to be announced at Gamescom officially, but somebody got a little bit trigger happy. According to that now deleted listing, the game is coming out on February 3rd, 2023. And here are some of the details that we know about the game. Well, I'll just read the official story description, and then there's one major game detail that I'll bring to you. So, a deadly virus is spreading across Los Angeles. And no, we're not talking about the La Llorona virus. Turning its inhabitants into ravenous zombies. The city is in quarantine and the military have retreated. Bitten, infected, but more than just immune, you learn to harness the zombie inside. Only you and the handful of other swaggering fellows who have to be resistant to the pathogen holds the future of LA and humanity in the balance. But why would you want to save LA? As you uncover the truth behind the outbreak, you'll discover who or what you are. Survive, evolve, save the world. Just another day in LA. Yeah, so that's the main description. And then based on one other thing from the now deleted listing, there's going to be 6 different characters that you can choose from. I'm guessing it's going to be like, this is the Brute. This is the recon guy. This is the one that uses snipers mostly. That sort of thing. And then very quickly, one last thing, just to give you guys a little bit of an update. If somehow, you know, you're as into gaming as you are, but don't know about all the drama behind Dead Island 2. Dead Island was a game that came out in the middle of the Xbox 360 PS3 era. The sequel was originally announced in 2014, if I remember correctly, and it was supposed to come out in 2015. But then there was just a huge amount of development hell going on behind the scenes. At one point, it went over to Jaeger. Those are the guys that made Spec Ops: The Line. Then it went over to Sumo Digital. They're the ones responsible for some good games like Disney Infinity, Little Big Planet. They also did Crackdown 3, but you know, you can't win them all. And then it went over to Dam Buster, the ones that took over development for Homefront: The Revolution. And now it looks like it's finally at a place where, I don't know, hopefully the publisher and the developers are happy with it. Or maybe it's going to end up being like a Crackdown 3 situation where it's in development forever and then it comes out like crap. I don't know.
Well, you know, I mean, it's been a while. I didn't think we'd be getting a new, top-down MOBA game, but you know, I suppose I could try it out.
Wait, what?
What? Is this not a continuation of Dead Island Epidemic?
No, is that real? Is that a thing? Like there was a MOBA called Dead Island Epidemic?
Yeah, there was a MOBA called Dead Island Epidemic with such characters as Amber, Bryce, Berg, Armored Berg, Mutated Berg, and
what?
Bunch of other characters.
Are you messing with me? I'm gonna look this
No,
up right
I'm
now.
I'm legitimately not.
Dead Island and Epidemic. Escape Dead. Oh, is this in? Oh yeah, it is in the same universe. Yeah, see,
Yeah,
okay.
And there's Dead Island Survivors.
Mm-hmm. Sorry for the
that was a mobile game. It came out on the 2018. Funny timing that. And then you've got Bloodbath Arena, and I mean, I'm just at the point now where I've lost count of the number of
spin-off
stuff, and I wonder. So we've talked a lot in the past about, okay, why is this game delayed? Is this game delayed for a good reason or a bad reason? Do we want a game to be delayed so that it actually launches correctly? Do we want a game to just come out if it's spent a freaking, 20 years in development?
Mm-hmm.
Which of those things do we want? And this is one of those things where I don't think this is necessarily the same thing. Because it's not that the studio hasn't been making any game at all. for the past like
9
decade.
years. Yeah.
They've made a lot of games, an enormous amount of Dead Island games. Unfortunately, a lot of them, if not, I don't think it would be fair to say most of them, but a lot of them are now defunct or not really like in the play anymore.
Right.
And this is unfortunately what you get when you do this kind of when you have this kind of industry where it's like, hey, make a mobile game, hey, make a MOBA, hey, chase this new thing, hey, can we do a battle royale, hey, we got to catch up to Fortnite, hey, we got to catch up to Apex Legends, hey, we have to do the new thing. It's like
it ruins everything.
Also did not know that Dead Island also has a retro side scroller.
Oh man, really?
Yeah,
really? They did all the things,
scroller.
all the possible things except for Dead Island 2. Like,
yeah,
I here's the deal, right? When it comes to Dead Island, like just asking about all these spinoffs, I had no idea they existed. I thought Dead Island was just that one game that came out like a decade ago, and that not everybody really liked, but it does have a solid cult following. That's sort of always been my impression of it. I never played it, so my enthusiasm for Dead Island is just more so about the fact that it never came out, and I just, finding that ridiculous and what's sort of the problem going on behind the scenes. And that's sort of why I wanted to talk about it right now. Saib, did you ever play it, the original one?
No, I checked out, like, I know a fair amount about it, but it was never on the top of my list of like, hey, I really like this game. And that was because I think at the time I was all zombied out.
Yeah.
Because, like, and zombies are one of those things where, like, sometimes it's just good by itself. Sometimes it's great as a surprise thing or as a nightmare mode that's not canon. There's a ton of different things that play into whether or not a zombie game is good and whether or not a zombie game is something that you want to play. Plants vs. Zombies. Really interesting.
Left 4 Dead.
Pretty decent.
Hey. Molotov's in the safe room. No.
Yeah.
That's
right?
Inside joke. Sorry, never mind. As far as Dead Island goes, like, I suppose it might have been interesting if it came out, like, 6 or 7 years ago when it was originally supposed to, and maybe they could have evolved on the formula in such a way where it's like, not a whole lot of people played the first game, but people loved the second game. Kind of like a more extreme version of Titanfall 1 to Titanfall 2, or something a little bit less controversial than that. But now it's like, I don't know. Yeah, unless it's like the greatest zombie game since Left 4 Dead 2, I'm not really interested.
I think so, and again, it's like I never really clicked with it. I did actually legitimately enjoy the MOBA for at least a little bit, but that was at the time when MOBAs were like the big current hip in line thing, and I've seen some of the other games. I do remember looking at the retro game, and in all of these scenarios, I have to say one thing is basically it's like, look, I'm not shocked that. In fact, I think it was probably a good choice for them to go from Dead Island 1 to outsourcing and trying different things, right? Because that's where you get, things like League of Legends and other stuff like that.
Sounds fine in principle.
Yeah, it was a good idea in principle, and on paper, there would have been no downsides to it at all. There would have been no negatives to it. It would have been like, look, hey, we're doing this thing. We just had this award-winning, fantastic game come out. We're going to be trying a whole bunch of things to kind of fit to see where else this can fit into different genres. And then for some reason, they all seem to crash and burn for the most part. Now, and I say for the most part because some of their stuff, I do believe was quite successful, and I want to say so there was Dead Island Riptide that came out 2016, and it seemed to do quite well initially, at least. Then they had the definitive edition come out, and that was met with generally positivity. Like, I want to say that it was, yeah, it's fairly highly rated. So, yeah, it's just overall, for some reason, whatever it was, they really swung and missed on a lot of their follow-ups. And I think those follow-ups slowed down this game significantly, because they probably hit a point where it's like, wow, all of our like secondary side games have done absolutely like atrociously. Some of them, like the one I mentioned earlier, only had 200 like reviews on Steam. That's abominable for something that's put out by what I would say is a fairly major label. But for whatever reason, again, none of that stuff took off. So I can't fault them, because I've often said that big games should be coming out with other additional games. Like, not just a phone port, but make, like, if this like 2D like side-scrolling retro one, if they had launched that, you know, when they announced Dead Island 2 and said, hey, we're working on this game, here's where we're at, you know, it's coming, everything's coming along. Now, we understand that you guys want your hands on something sooner or faster. Hey, we made a retro game. It's a little bit of an experiment from us. Try it out, see what you think. When you do that, which is what Fallout did and what Bethesda did, you can have tremendous success and widen your scope just a little bit. But I don't think they did that right. I think they did that. I think they tried too broad, and they didn't have a singular defined like, hey, look at me kind of thing. And I think that if they did that a little bit better in the future, or if anybody did that, like, that's something that they have to keep cognizant of. It's like, you got to have your main thing. You got to be very clear on your main thing, but then you can experiment with stuff on the side, because, you know, it can be worth it. So yeah, Strange. I hope that it's good. Like, fingers crossed. I hope that it's good.
Yeah, I hope that's something. Yeah.
Yeah. The original Dead Island first trailer, like the first cinematic trailer of like the
iconic.
The which?
I know. I'm saying the trailer was iconic. Like, everybody talks about how good that trailer was years later.
Yeah, yeah, and it's one thing. It's like, I think they should have doubled down more on stuff like that instead of going in the direction that they did. But really, that is because they did what on paper made sense. Right? And we haven't gotten anything for them for almost a decade now. So, yeah, let's cross our fingers. Hope this goes well. I doubt. What did they have a release date?
February 3rd, which is really soon. Yeah.
Which again, I mean, I am so glad that all of our favorite big title games, all of our most anticipated games, aren't all coming out in February next year.
Right.
You know, I'm so glad that Hogwarts and Starfield and all these other games are all due in the early next year.
Well, we don't know that for sure.
This is definitely not a problem at all.
No, I'm not too worried, because we don't know exactly when Starfield's coming out. They said first half of 2023. That could be June, right? That gives me four full ass months to play Hogwarts Legacy. Plus, you know, I don't know. I don't know what to think about Dead Island 2. We'll see what comes out of Gamescom. I will tell you this, though. If whatever trailer they show pokes fun at Goat Simulator 3, instant buy from me. All right. So that's the huge breaking news. And we move on to what was going to be the obvious headline topic of the show, because it's pretty huge, in my opinion, especially because it deals with not just probably my favorite franchise, but, well, no, my favorite franchise is Metal Gear Solid. My favorite movie franchise. Let's go with that. It deals with that. So, Syb, recently we talked about Embracer Group. They've been buying up a lot of intellectual property and developers in the worlds of games. They recently bought up two of, I think, the most brilliantly written game series ever in Legacy of Kain and Deus Ex. They also bought up Tomb Raider and Thief. Really, really, like, beloved properties. You know, not all the games are great, but they're art, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, they have continued to go on a bit of a spending binge, and I say that without any criticism. And one of the properties that they picked up, really surprising to me, and at a cheaper price than I would have expected, is Lord of the Rings. They bought the rights to.
I believe it's Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, though, isn't it? It's not a broad spectrum buy. It was a.
So I can provide you the breakdown to the things they got and the things they didn't. So they got the rights to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit in regards to future movies, merchandising, stage productions, theme parks, board games, and video games. The only thing that they didn't get the rights for is book publishing. That remains with the Tolkien family. And they bought all of that for $573 million. That seems low for Lord of the Rings. Because I would think that, it's not as popular as Star Wars. But, Disney bought out Star Wars about 10 years ago for 8 times that amount. Add in inflation, it just seems like it's not deserving of that franchise. But anyways, they control it now. According to them, they could explore movies. They're exploring the idea of doing movies on separate characters like Gandalf, Aragorn, Gollum, Galadriel, Eowyn, and a whole bunch of others. I'm not sure how well that'll work out. I mean, we'll see how well it works out for the Gollum video game. But one thing I also forgot to mention in regards to rights, apparently, even though they own the rights to certain future movies, Warner Brothers still owns some feature-length production rights. Now, those could go, they could relapse into Embracer Group if they don't make a certain Lord of the Rings-related thing in a certain period of time. We'll see if something comes of that. You okay?
Sorry.
Okay. It's okay. He's sort of fuming over the buyout. No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm just shocked because the only source that I read up on this was like, oh yeah, The Hobbit. And I was like, The Hobbit. They're being quite limited then. Then when I see this, when I hear this, I'm like, my goodness, they bought like literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the interest with the theme park thing, like, and then how this is going to interact with the whole Amazon thing with the current bizarre show.
Well, from what I understand, it's not going to affect the deal with Amazon in any way. Apparently, the deal for that show was done as a completely separate thing that allows them to do specifically just this show and nothing else. So that's still purely Amazon, so it doesn't affect that at all. Yeah, and as for theme parks, I think that's just the potential for theme parks. That doesn't tell me that, like, we're going to be able to go to like Disney World at some point, or not Disney World. That's a totally different company, but you know what I mean.
I do wonder. What would it be like to go to a Lord of the Rings themed, like think like Disney World, not Disneyland because it's smaller. Think like Disney World, like they buy half of New Zealand. Right? They buy half of New Zealand, and then you just go nuts because why not?
Like the half of the entire New Zealand economy is based around tourism of people just wanting to go visit those sets in that country. That and I don't know, maybe they're fans of Flight of the Conchords, but hey, I'd be down. It would make me want to visit if they put up a theme park there. One thing that they have to do though is if they like do, like, let's say there's a Rivendell land or a Gondor land. If they have a Mordor land,
I mean, I'm looking forward to Mordor land. Giant spiders, orcs,
right? But here's the
trying
reason
that
why.
Orc meat burger,
right? But
yum.
the main reason why I want a Mordor land is because I want to be able to simply walk into it.
One does not.
Thank you. I've been holding that back the entire day. Come on, that was a good one.
Yeah.
But anyways, the reason why we bring this up, because this is a gaming show. They did buy up the rights to Lord of the Rings video games. Do you think so?
Well, I mean, it is Embracer Group, so
right.
I mean that kind of makes sense.
But I'm just wondering, like, what is the likelihood that they would go into production on something like this relatively soon? I would think pretty soon. Like, I would hope that we get like a Lord of the Rings video game in the next 2 or 3 years to go alongside the show. I'm just wondering what they would do.
Well, I mean, I don't think the show is. I'm not liking the show, and I believe that it's a mix. It's mostly lack of vision and lack of like sticking to the
lore.
The lore.
Okay.
And that's not to say that, oh well, you know, they're just terrible in the show. It's
it
like
hasn't come out yet. We don't know.
The failure you get when you try to rewrite lore is you rewrite lore. Like, the failure is the act of saying, hey, I can do this. And it's not trying to, like, you know, do the best job that you can, because I think you could say that, you know, Peter Jackson tried to do the best job that he could, putting what was in the books onto film, period. And right. I think that that's probably the best thing to do in any case scenario, because if you estrange your fans, I mean, that doesn't end well for you. But,
yeah, it's not a good way to start, but, you know, it's not impossible for them to have come up with a good story to set inside the Lord of the Rings universe, but we'll see at the beginning of next month. But here's what I want from this. Did you ever play the Two Towers and the Return of the King video games?
Oh, yeah.
Those games were awesome, man.
They were...
Yeah.
I actually, there was a lot of people didn't play the RPG that they came out with, where you got to play a custom group that was written in. And again, coming off of what I just said about, you know, careful when you're doing, that's when you're doing like mainline content, right? It's when you're doing like content that's within the story. This never supposed itself to be that, but it was this side story that took place alongside the movies where you ran with a group of characters and you just did all this like RPG, like standard Western / Eastern Japanese style RPG, running around fighting bosses, doing that kind of stuff. And one of the main characters was a female elf, and there was a dwarf, and there was some other characters. And again, it's like despite what I just said, I'm not backtracking on myself. I'm saying that when you make a main product, like this is the next big thing. They never claim to be the next big thing. They claim to say, hey, we wanted to see what an RPG would be like in this universe. We created some side characters that aren't part of the lore. They're just a way for us to experiment and give good story. This isn't going to be replacing anything, you know, that we value. Like, everybody's already fought as Legolas like 15,000 times. Let's try something slightly different. That's not the same thing as saying, hey, we're going to make a new movie or new book or new show, or we're going to write a new book, and we're just going to take a bunch of what was written and just throw it out because we're not happy with it anymore. You know, like they did with Star Wars. They threw away the entire side canon that had been developed for how many decades, and they just trashed it. And then she had the gall, the lady who was running that, Kathleen Kennedy, had the gall to say, oh, you know, Marvel just gets to do, they're having so much success because there's so much content for them to work off. We don't have any existing content. It's like that statement, like, literally, like, I lost brain cells when I say that.
I lost a double-digit number of IQ points.
Yeah. So, and again, it's like, would I be willing to see a different show featuring, I don't know, in Canada, we used to have these, like, family-friendly, like, shows. One was called Road to Avonlea. And it was literally a story about a small town in PEI that just did small town things. I would love a show that's about hobbits doing the exact same thing. And I think that it would be fine, and you could create whatever story you wanted, and for the most part, as long as it was funny, as long as you laughed, as long as you experienced what J.R. Tolkien himself considered himself to be, which was a hobbit, because he enjoyed the simple things in life, and he enjoyed a good meal, he enjoyed, unmechanized farmland, he enjoyed things that were just small and peaceful and happy. That's what he enjoyed. That's what he loved the most. And so if you create a story like that and that kind of really feeds that energy, I think that's great. I think that will work. when you say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do the Silmarillion books," and "Oh yeah, we're gonna change most of what's written there," because it's just not hip with the current times, and we're just we can write better and make adjustments. It's like whenever you do that, that's when you're losing, because you're not valuing them. If you wanted to do that as a side story and create a bunch of side stories and tell a story that didn't happen, that wasn't canon in the mainland, I think you'd actually have legitimately more success doing that than by taking something that people were expecting to be followed. A lot of the movies you could follow it almost like word for word. Like it's not quite like that, but it's pretty close. It's not, again, it just generally it's like very accurate to what happened. Right. There's very little things that happen in a discombobulated sense, but that's what we're getting with the new show. So,
right.
So that's what I think they should do.
Okay.
I know.
Just two very quick things. Going back to my original point about the original games based on the Peter Jackson movies, I would be down if they wanted to get out something relatively quickly just to coincide with the release of the new show. If they remastered... See, Fellowship of the Ring, I played that video game. It wasn't very good. But the Two Towers in Return of the King were dope. And I would love to cut off the heads of orcs as Aragorn or Gandalf, because you could play as Gandalf in the third one. You played as Gimli and Legolas in the second one. I'd be down to purchase that again before they come up with something else. And hey, maybe they can follow your idea where you can... I don't know, do sort of like a farming simulator where you play as a hobbit and that'd be cool.
Exactly. That's where I'm like they missed their opportunity to do like side stuff like that, which was like technically within the world, but technically not within the world. So
yeah. So
again, I don't want to super long winded on this stuff because there's so much possibility there, right?
Remind me
so much like
Yeah, sorry. Just remind me to ask you something about the Silmarillion after we're done, because I wanted to ask you for your opinion on something in regards to that. But we got to move on. We got a whole bunch of other stories that we got to finish, get through before we finish. So up next, here's something that I think pretty much everybody can agree on. Ghost of Tsushima. That game was dope. It was my game of the year for 2020. Probably one of the best games that I played in the last 5 years. I adore Sucker Punch. I love pretty much everything that they put out. I love the Infamous games. I like Sly Cooper, even though we're not, getting any new games in those franchises anytime soon. If it means we're getting Ghost of Tsushima 2, I can live with that. But also, alongside that newly burgeoning franchise, it seems like we're getting a movie. Because it seems in Hollywood nowadays, Saib, the most bankable thing that you can rely on is recognizable IPs. Ghost of Tsushima seems to be one that they're hoping to turn into a even bigger franchise by doing a movie on it. Sony,
that would be dope.
Yeah, I'd be down for it, and one of the main reasons why is because the director for the Ghost of Tsushima movie, the one they attached to it, is a guy named Chad Stahelski, and he's the guy who directed all the John Wick films. Not only that, but to your point a second ago, one of his favorite directors is Akira Kurosawa. He's famous for Seven Samurai and Ran and all those classics. And it seems like he would have the greater capacity to pay homage to that culture, to that game, because not only is he planning to have an all-Japanese cast and do it entirely in Japanese, it seems like he has the capacity to do it because he's been going to Japan since he was 16, and he can direct in English and Japanese. So it seems like at least you got those basic elements down. He said all this in a recent interview about what he wants to do for the movie. Whether or not it actually gets greenlit, we just know he's attached to it. These statements from him are really, really positive. And one other really important thing, if you're going to do a Japanese war type movie, he wants it to be visually stunning, which Ghost of Tsushima, the game, was. I would hope that he might try to go for some sort of art direction like we got with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Or have you ever seen the movie Hero, Saib? With Jet Li?
Yeah, Jet Li, yes.
Yeah. Can you imagine a colorful-ass movie like that, but with Ghost of Tsushima? That would be the greatest thing ever as far as, video game movies that have been produced to date. I think you and I would probably agree. It's probably Sonic. And hopefully something a little bit more mature can top that at some day. Maybe it'll be Ghost of Tsushima, and everything that this guy's saying points in that direction. Saib, did you play Ghost of Tsushima, and what is your response to these comments by the director? And are you excited about the prospect?
I don't want to steal Ash's thunder. Ash played Ghost of Tsushima, and it has a ton of guides up on the main channel. Check out the Triple S League for all of Ash's guides on that game.
Links
which were all really, really, really good. Yeah, they were. He talked up a storm about that a number of times.
One of the few games I've ever platinum. See, yeah. This is how good the game is. If you never played it, you really need to. But please continue.
Yeah, no, it was a solid game, 100%. And like, if they're doing a movie of it, I think that's good. And I think, like, I really hope that they. Yeah, I really hope that they do it. Frankly, I really hope that they do it, and I hope that he's the guy who directs it, because
John Wick is awesome.
Of people. Yeah, John Wick's awesome, and plus the people of specifically of that area really did appreciate what the game creators had done in showcasing that bit of history. They actually were quite happy with it, and. So I think it's fine. And I think it's good. Probably one of the better ideas.
Yeah, of all the Sony properties I want them to do a video game on, that's probably the major movie. Yeah, I can't really think of any of the other major Sony IP. Well, maybe God of War at some point with Aquaman starring. Thank you very much.
No. You got to get Christopher Judd.
I know. He would be good. I'd be fine with it. Yeah. I think Jason Momoa would be better. But speaking of Sucker Punch, I know I have it differently on the list here, side, but I want to go into this very quickly. Speaking of Sucker Punch,
bad movie. Great visually. It was amazing visually. It was just terrible.
Man. That's good, because we're about to talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I was going to take it in a completely different direction, but I love the way that he went, because the M. Night Shyamalan movie, I've never seen it, but from what I understand, it's like one of the top 10 worst movies ever made, which I think of the top 10, The Sham Hammer has like 3 of those. The Happening was probably the worst movie I've ever seen. But I bring it up because last week I said, we had the shortest news segment in the history of the show, where I said that Avatar: The Last Airbender video game, open world video game, was in development, but it was exclusively coming to mobile. And then in response to that, the aforementioned Ash, he pointed out an article to me from, Nintendo Everything, that said apparently there is a console game coming out pretty soon based around the Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's apparently going to be called The Quest for Balance, and it's coming out on November the 8th. And he said that it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't take your hopes down a complete notch just yet, Max, because apparently this is in development. And as for what does this have to do with Sucker Punch? Well, I've always said, people have asked me, what's your ideal video game? That hasn't been announced or isn't an existing project that you would love to see. And my response to that, as of late, has been, I would love to see an Avatar: The Last Airbender video game done by Sucker Punch. I think they would be the ones that would be able to do the majesty of that property justice. Yeah. They would do very, very creative things with it. But it seems that instead of that, this new game is going to be coming out on November the 8th. It's being made by Game Mill Entertainment. They are the same people that made Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl and Kart Racers. And before you think, well, I don't know, maybe they could make a pretty good open world game. No, they're self-professed makers of casual games, so it's not going to be an ambitious open world title, but I just want it so bad. But just
see, I would like a Sucker Punch movie done by Sucker Punch the studio.
What? Like that's the Zack Snyder movie, right? With the girls and
I think it was Zack Snyder. All I remember is the visuals of that movie were great. and I loved so much about it that it really started to miss on some of the things, like starting to get into it, and then it just like had the worst possible ending you could possibly ever have, ever.
I remember watching.
It was really disturbing.
I remember watching that movie, but I don't remember a single goddamn thing about it. That's about it, how memorable. Aside from apparent, like I remember the visuals being kind of cool, and also I remember Bjork's "Army of Me" was in that movie, and I love that song. Yeah. But just a little bit of a extra addition to the misery surrounding that wonderful property, guys. Seriously, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a kids show, yes, but it's probably. And I say this without exaggeration, it's probably the best kids show ever made. Seriously. The way that it manages to interweave.
I think you've got a long way to go there, because Inspector Gadget was clearly the more superior.
I mean, as far as theme songs go, absolutely, but everything else, just watching the guy fail over and over again to his niece Penny every single week. It's cute, but it doesn't get to sort of like the deeper artistic themes, philosophical themes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Thank you very much. Although I do love Inspector Gadget. But yeah, just a little bit of an update in regards to that. Moving on. You know what? Let's just... actually, no, I don't want to end on a bad note. End on positive stories. Just one negative story very quickly. So, Nintendo of America, their president, Doug Bowser, no, that's seriously his name. Kotaku recently did an article about him sending out an internal memo to people in the company. Apparently, there have been reports, like there have been, unfortunately, with a lot of game-related companies, about harassment in the workplace. He sent out an internal message, this says by way of Kotaku, and the message acknowledged the claims and said that they were investigating. This, like the discovery and publishing of this internal message came out on the same day that former female contractors, people that were game testers for Nintendo of America games, reported experiencing harassment at the Nintendo of America's HQ in Redmond, Washington. They accused two managers of workplace misconduct and described the place as a frat house. Now, whether or not that turns out to be the case, I mean, it's hard not to sympathize given the climate surrounding these types of claims in the workplace in regards to games nowadays, after the whole Activision Blizzard thing, the ongoing Ubisoft thing, and a couple of other companies that I can't think of off the top of my head. But I just thought, given how seriously that we take these things and how seriously you guys should take it, we figured we'd just let you guys know and let you pay closer attention to this. Syb, any thoughts on this?
No, I actually missed the story on this one, because there was another one that just came out, another big Me Too thing. So it was like, yeah, you'd only read so many of those things in a day.
It's too many
before you start to get kind of like sick to your stomach. Yeah, no, it's disgusting. And what's more disgusting is usually there's a lot of people who have a big talk, but turns out that it's very much a, hey, do what I say, not do what I do kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And again, I also don't want to jump down to any conclusions. I believe that everybody has their day in court.
Yeah.
And that evidence really is very, very important on this kind of stuff. And that evidence should always be looked at first and foremost, because we do know of people who have had people set them up for stuff, or have had accusations that have had no water whatsoever. And yeah, that's just not that, that's not good, because that just makes more victims of actual real victims. Mm-hmm. And we all just saw that through the one of the recent court cases that I don't want to talk about.
Right. What was her last name? Turd? Oh, no, Heard. Sorry. Yeah. So, yeah, that is an example of lies, but, the Activision Blizzard thing, that looks pretty substantiated. So, yeah, just let the evidence come out, but nonetheless, just pay close attention, just as, you know, somebody that would prefer to not see this sort of thing be the future for women in this particular industry. All right, couple of positive things to end on. Syb, you know, I just talked about a game that isn't, you know, an actual project that's in the works, but that I would love to see. There are tons of projects that, you know, haven't been officially announced, but we know that are in the works. Like another Half-Life game we know about, that's pretty much coming, courtesy of Tyler McVicker. We know that a new Silent Hill game, or Silent Hill games rather, is coming. And one other game, probably, I can't talk, probably my most anticipated one out of all of them, and I'm not joking, is Spyro 4. Spyro 3, Year of the Dragon, I'm serious, it's in my top 5 games of all time. That game offered so much variety, so much color, so much wonderful music, so much charm.
See, and here I was thinking that I thought you never played, you know, World of Warcraft, and you weren't interested in Dragonflight, the next expansion coming out in a couple of months.
No, I love dude. I love dragons. I love the crap out of dragons. I've always said
you get to customize your own dragon, and you can make a Spyro in there.
Well, you know, the difference between,
I mean, it's
all those games and World of Warcraft.
It's a Spyro that I would say is definitely like one that you would have seen on like DeviantArt or Tumblr back when it allowed, you know, more of the furry stuff.
No, I'm good.
But you know, it's the same thing, right? So
yeah, I'm not up for that degeneracy. Thank you very much. And I'm not just talking about World of Warcraft, the game.
So you're actually just referring to Spyro, the original game. Okay.
Yes, I'm speaking about Spyro, the kid-friendly collectathon game. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Spyro, the Dragon, Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage, and Spyro 3, Year of the Dragon. All wonderful games. The third one is my favorite. And just like with the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy, which I absolutely love as well, that one got a fourth game, Crash Bandicoot 4. It's at a time, probably the second best game I played the year that it came out. I think that came out in 2020, so my number one would have been Ghost of Tsushima. I have wanted them to, the Toys for Bob, the people that made Crash Bandicoot 4 and that own the rights to Spyro, to do a Spyro 4. And they were teasing it. In the art book for Crash Bandicoot 4, Toys for Bob pointed out, you know, just sort of suggesting, hey, this might be something we're working on. It's a Spyro 4. It's a little teaser. You can look it up online if you don't believe me. But then tragically, Activision Blizzard put all the guys at Toys for Bob on working on Call of Duty Warzone. Because apparently you need multiple studios to work on a game where...
Well, it's Call of Duty Warzone. I mean, it's, you know, it's one of the best video game franchises of hell, and the next level of Hades. You know, it abuses your money, and it just takes advantage of you in every way, shape, or form. And you know, it's run by one of the most evil villains, Bond villains ever. He runs a gaming industry thing. So yeah, you know, gotta be careful about that stuff.
Yeah. They took him away from my precious Purple Dragon and put it on like a game that...
What a dumb move. I
know.
mean, seriously. Why on earth did they think that was a good, like, what possible reasoning did they have for that? That's the thing that irritates me the most.
I mean, I get it. It's money. It's Call of Duty.
But I don't think just hire more people and make Call of Duty better instead of, like, you know, cannibalizing one of your own studios.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they want this family friendly stuff to like be like the mainstay, so that they can have like this enormous selection of stuff for the whole family. Hey, get little Timmy to play Diablo 4. You know, hey, my ritual sacrifice of the zombie didn't, you know, Mom, my ritual sacrifice of the zombie to appease the evil devil didn't go very well. That's because that Diablo fellow, he got involved and he messed it up. Oh, that silly little devil. Ha ha ha. Because, you know, that's the family friendly content that we get instead of a Spyro game, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's enough to make your head hurt.
Yeah, but remember, we are talking about Activision Blizzard, and we are talking about Bobby Kotick.
Yeah.
It sucks, but the reason why we're bringing this up now is because we have reason to believe that Toys for Bob is no longer a part of the team regarding Call of Duty Warzone, and they are going back to their own personal projects. This is because recently on Twitter, they challenged the people that follow them to try and name all the games that they released in chronological order. And then once people tried to do that, they put out an image of the 17 games that they've made. But in the image, there was sort of a blank there for an 18th game, and they labeled it as 18th, question mark, question mark, question mark. And that sort of teased, well, maybe we're back to working on a game. Does that mean it's going to be Spyro 4? Possibly, but there's also the possibility that it's going to be another Crash Bandicoot game. Somebody, let me see here. There was a guy named Jez Corden of Windows Central. He said on the Xbox Chatter Days podcast that Toys for Bob is probably working on another Crash Bandicoot game. It's going to be sort of like a 4-player brawler, which I would be okay with because I do love Crash Bandicoot. But come on. Come on, please. Don't break my heart. Don't mess with me, man. Don't go to Crash Bash. Please, just give me Spyro 4, please. And do whatever the hell you want. Make Crash Bandicoot games until you die, until the heat death of the universe. But please, just give me the one game and don't make me wait too long. Please. And please bring, what's his name, Kenny, back to do the voice of Spyro, and everything will be gravy, baby. And dude, Sybe, if Spyro 4 is as good as Crash 4 was, then I will feel eternally blessed. I will never complain about a video game again. No.
We know that's not true.
But that's literally, to get my hands on a Spyro 4, that's how much that little purple guy meant to me as a kid. I would love, that's how much I want it. If, you know, that great example of hyperbole is enough to prove it. I'm guessing Spyro was probably a little bit too late. You're a little bit older when it came out, right? Did you ever play it?
Like when I was helping my younger brothers and sisters play it, yeah.
Okay. Did you like it? Do you remember having any?
Yeah, no. It was always one of those games where I'm like, "This is really cute. I wonder how many more of these they'll make." And the answer was, well, at the time, last time I played it was like, well, apparently none, because apparently they have to do that whole, COD thing. So.
Yeah, where they put out one really, really quickly every year. Yeah, sort of like with Crash. There were a whole bunch of other games that came out after the third one, but only 1 through 3 were good for both respective franchises. And I hope that they'll sort of continue on from the original trilogy like they did with Crash, and then we can hang out with Hunter and Alora and the Professor and all the extra protagonists from Spyro 3. That'd be cool. But yeah, just letting you guys know that the tragedy of them going to work on Call of Duty Warzone appears to be over. Now it's just a matter of time and waiting to figure out what's coming up next. Hopefully Spyro 4. All right, finally. Side, still haven't ever played a game of D&D yet. I have, though, recently begun Disco Elysium, which apparently is kind of close to D&D. At least not like the same franchise, but in the way that it's played. What is going on with Dungeons and Dragons?
So the 5th edition is now done. 5th edition is finished.
What does that mean?
So 5th edition was the latest rule set that they were using. They had done obviously they started with their first iteration of Dungeons and Dragons. That was a long time ago by Gary something, I can't remember off the top of my head. Then they moved to they did a rebrand that wasn't the greatest. Then they really hit fire with their 3rd edition, and then 4th edition kind of fell on its wayside. 5th edition came out, was really, really good, and that's what they've been using thus far. So that's tracking a few decades of D&D engines and tools and tool sets and all this other stuff. It's done. They're no longer doing editions. Now they're swapping to a D&D, what they call one experiment. And
like an Xbox One.
Yeah, I hate it when they do this, where it's like, hey, instead of creating the 6th edition and being happy with that, we're just going to create it and we're just going to call it number 1.
Yeah,
which totally
can you
makes
imagine
sense.
if Sony ever did that for the PlayStation? There would be a global riot if they named it like PlayStation Next or PlayStation Revolution. No, kudos whoever gets that reference, but continue.
So the news here is that they're also putting out a web game app, and I say game app with a lot of hesitancy, because it's not a game, it's a tool in which you and your GMs can sit down and play games together or over distances, supposedly. It came out yesterday, I believe, the early access tools for it, and it is going to create kind of like a set, and then they're going to allow you to, you purchase a campaign, you get the set, then you can break the set down and use the set kind of like Lego blocks to kind of build the different set. Again, there's no you don't take the game and you don't play a game like you're hacking and slashing. It's very much just a move piece. It's basically just a fancy D&D tabletop setup with no with some animations but no AI or anything like that. It's just a matter of you move your character here, you move your character there, you tell the GM what you want to do. The GM decides what happens. It gives you the challenge, etc., etc. So yeah, that's the more or less that's the way that they're going.
Okay. Sorry.
The big news on this is that there was already an app doing this. It was called Roll20. Sorry, not app. There was Roll20 was basically already doing this. Now D&D has come in, said that they're going to be doing this. So basically they're declaring war on it. So
okay.
So we're going to see some interesting stuff over the next little while. And I don't think it's unfair to say that I think a little bit of this, just a little bit of this, has something to do with Baldur's Gate 3, which is one of our most anticipated games. I think one of the best games that we're going to be getting over the next, it's coming out next year. It's definitely going to be one of the best games next year, but it's also giving us a platform to actually play D&D games together. It's going to be a lot more involved than just people sitting around booting up an app, but that's a good thing. You're going to be able to have, set up fights to either be, go roll by roll or go, turn by turn kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of options here, and there's a lot of us seeing the options that Larian is putting out. I think it got Wizards of the Coast off of their butt, because they're really trying to put energy into this now, which has been so late. I thought one of the main reasons why they hadn't been doing anything recently is because Hasbro was prepping to sell them to make a huge profit. But maybe at this point they've decided to keep them and instead focus their energy on polishing their existing offering, so that you actually can do something that's both interactive for your game world, your virtual world, as well as your real world. Because when you buy a book, supposedly the new books might come with, they might become you might be able to do them on the digital app, which is something that they don't have right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can't buy certain digital copies of stuff, and it's because they have a large print game.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting move by them and by Hasbro. It's hella late. A lot of us have been saying, why isn't there we had a tool to do D&D games, going down to almost roll by roll back in the early 2000s, even prior to that. in the form of the Neverwinter Nights 1 and 2, not to be confused with Neverwinter Nights Online. Two completely different games, completely different concepts of games. They're not even in the same genre. So this is interesting. But the fact that they're targeting one of the biggest proponents that has helped them reach the level of success that they have is a little disconcerting. It's a little strange that they're saying, hey, we're going to do this now, and now this game, these tools that the community has created, we're going to now co-opt their design and features and all this kind of stuff to really make it ours. And that's the weird bit, because it's like I certainly wouldn't have encouraged them to do that. I would have said, look, you guys have dropped the ball for long enough. People took it over and decided to run with it, and destroying that would be like you pissing off half your player base. Maybe it's not half, maybe it's a quarter, maybe it's only 5 or 10%, but in any way, shape, or form, that's not a good thing. So, yeah. So that's the news there on that.
Just in regards to that online tool, could you hook me up with that? Because I had a client that was looking for something similar to that recently, who's really into Dungeons.
Well, it's in testing right now. I believe it's free to download. I'll give you the link.
Thanks.
We'll post the link in our Discord if you'd like it. Join our Discord and come chat with us and have fun. And hey, if you don't like any of those big conglomerate games, come play Tower of Fantasy with me and some other people that are playing it right now.
Oh yeah, still liking it?
Yeah, so Tower of Fantasy, basically a Genshin game. Basically is a Genshin game. It's an interesting Genshin game in the sense that you get to play as your own character, and you can use the skins of the heroes you unlock, but you don't have to. You can design and create your own character, and there's no downside to that whatsoever. You're not missing out on power, and it's just a cool way to see the genre evolving. It, of course, is still a gacha game. However, most people who play gacha games are saying that, especially if you played Diablo Immortal recently, you'd be like, hey, Diablo Immortal is this evil hell beast. The game, not the character in the game. Obviously, there's hell beasts in the game, but the game itself is a beast out of hell. It sets you up for microtransactions and is extremely high pressure. Tower of Fantasy is not. And there's no player power really associated with the PvP. There is, in the sense that you do have to unlock characters, but if you just play the game, you just unlock characters at a pretty standard rate, and you can always buy them after a certain amount of time with just in stuff that you earn in game. I've gotten almost the entire list of characters unlocked right now through mostly a lot of free rolling. So there's only the one that I've put some effort into getting, and other than that, the game is pretty free to play friendly. And I think that's that way because this game is really hated in China. But in China, their number one favorite game is heavy gacha and monetize, heavy monetization. They're eating up Diablo Immortal. What? I could put $100,000 into this game and still have more ability to buy? There's one guy showing off his account. He was a free to play until somebody bought him, said, hey, here, use this $20 on a pull. So he used the $20 on a pull. So he grand total had spent $20 on the game, and he had unlocked his last character. And so when you go into PvP, it's not about your gear level or anything like that. All of your stats, all of your characters are all maxed out, and you just play to the current going meta, which, if you have everything unlocked, doesn't cost you a dime. So it is a little bit like I hate to say this, but because it's like it's so dumb. It's like I'm like, wow, a free to play gacha game that's not, inherently evil, like really, really evil.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gacha game that's like got some light mechanics. If you're spending more than $200 on the game, you clearly have a problem and you don't know how to play the game. Like, well, I mean, you know how to play the game, but it's like you're skipping the natural, like, at the current rate that you get them, because you just run around and you run around on the map, you collect all the things, and then you basically unlock 3 or 4 characters that way, and then you get the choice to buy several other characters. So it's like, all right, that's not bad. And it's still bad in the sense that I don't want there to be any gacha game. Gacha games are like I said, they're evil. They're dumb. And I'm only really trying this out to see what it's like and to see how the genre has evolved and changed. And then sadly also with this realization that there's more and more games that we're getting are becoming heavily, monetized, and I'm not sure I like where that's going. So on one side, it's kind of like, hey, this game isn't that bad. You don't have to spend money on it. Moon hasn't spent a dime on the and yet, like, the fact that we still have to put up with that's a little disturbing still, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is going to be worth it. It is, as far as I can see, a fairly good sign that heavy monetization is not needed. But then you hear about, like, you look at Genshin Impact. In Genshin Impact, they released their numbers. It cost them $200 million USD to make that game to begin with. And then they've spent another $500 million on making the game, keeping the game, like, up to date. $500 million. Like, what? How? And why? $500 million. But it's also, like, as far as, like, the game content, the story, everything aside from the gacha mechanics is actually pretty top notch. It's actually really good. But the $500 million to make it, and you think, wow, that's insane. How can they afford that? Well, it's because the gacha pulls in $200 billion, or not, $2 billion a year. So that's not even like 10% of their budget every year to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. That's pretty insane. That's pretty, like, bizarre. And the fact that this is becoming normalized, I don't know. I don't know where the game industry is going, but I don't like this stuff. It's concerning. It's rough. I'm glad that this game is free to play friendly, and that most people, I put a little bit. I bought one of the things on it just to see kind of how the rates are and to see, like, how the stuff goes, so that I could give an accurate representation of it. And it's like, I really liked the game. I really wanted an outfit. That's what I bought. I bought an outfit. Anybody who knows me, I gotta have my aesthetic, man. And I got a great aesthetic, and I love this aesthetic. I love the look of the character. It was worth the money. But still, I don't like that it's so, like, this becoming more normalized.
Yes, I understand, Simon. And that's, there's examples of games that are free. There's enough games that are free that you can peruse through, that you can find entertaining, that you don't have to spend a dime on. Like, for example, my girlfriend has recently got me to play Apex Legends for the first time. I enjoy it. Never spent a dime on it. That's just, and I know it comes from EA, but at the end of the day, if you're not spending any money on it, it's not really helping them, right? So just find a game like that, and hopefully, when you do spend money, spend it on quality single-player games, like what we're expecting to be quality single-player games like God of War Ragnarok, Callisto Protocol, yada, yada, yada. Hopefully Dead Island 2, but we'll see. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone way over time. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, make sure you hit that like button, because when you do, it tells the YouTube algorithm that not only this video is worth watching, but all the other videos on this channel. So please do that. It helps us out a lot. Make sure to hit subscribe so that way you stay up to date with all the other episodes of Maximum News and the other podcasts. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing the show with me. Syb, do you want to remind people about the main channel real quick before we finish?
Yeah, check out the Triple S League. Like I said, we got lots of guides up there for a ton of games. We used to do podcasts up there, but we have moved the podcast over to this channel. So please like and sub and join this channel, because it's been a little difficult for this transition. We needed to do the transition because YouTube hates when you cover multiple different things on one channel. It doesn't suggest it, it doesn't learn or take a lesson to say, oh, hey, somebody likes your guides, but they don't necessarily like the podcast, so we won't, suggest it. But when they don't listen to the podcast, or when they don't check out the guide, then it's immediately not listed or like encouraged or suggested that they watch anything else, which is so dumb. Yeah, and it's so frustrating. I deal with it too, so man. We very much appreciate you guys who tune in and listen every day, every week, and who check out the main channel for guides and stuff. And we're going to have a ton of content coming out there for a whole bunch of games that we're going to be getting in the fall, in the winter. The latest one that we were hitting pretty heavily was the Stray game. Ash has some video content coming out about that soon. We're going to be some mod reviews on that. It's great. I love that. I love that there's mods for this game. It's great. But yeah, check us out there, and thank you again for your support. It really means a lot to us.
You guys can just find me on all the regular forms of social media, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to Syb stuff and my stuff in the description box below. Until next time, guys, want to remind you as always, and as per usual, stay yellow.